Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Moser. Tell people who you are.
I'm also
say the first name.
Morrissey.
Okay. Now you're old enough to be on Facebook.
And this is Black History 101.
Okay. Well, we are standing at the very end of South Elm Street here in Statesville, North Carolina, and this is a historical bridge, the railway of South Elm Street. This bridge goes over an early train track, and the trains were coming into Statesville in the early 1830s. So can you imagine that our family members, because you're from this community, our family members were being packed in as cargo and brought in on these very, very tracks in the early 1800s. Before that, we had to walk in the coffers and come down the Great Wagon Trail, which is part of I-40. You know about that history?
So they had to take 40 west and walk
Yeah.
all the way here?
Pretty much. It's not the Great Wagon Trail is not all of I-40, but the part that comes through here was a part of the Great Wagon Trail. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know.
What do you know about this neighborhood?
I really grew up right there on the one way. I grew up there. That's my neighborhood. This is my neighborhood. But far as history wise, like
This is my
important
neighborhood
history.
Too. How old are you?
23.
And see, I'm 65, and so this is my neighborhood. This is my neighborhood too. Okay,
Yes,
this is my
ma'am.
neighborhood. So different decades, but it's still our early history. This is our early history. So coming up here in the 60s, probably the most predominant thing in the community for us was the Garfield swimming pool. What was the most predominant thing in the neighborhood for you?
It was a swimming pool because that just was like during the summer. It was a place to be.
It was the place to be, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, it was segregated when I was coming up. Was it segregated for you when you were there, or was it integrated where, different cultures able to,
You had your
have that
groups.
humor?
But it's like by the time my generation came around, let's say 2006, everything was together and it was just starting to see
Diving together.
music. You know what I'm saying? Then they just
There's
took
a train going by. I hope you can hear me. I should have brought the mic again. I'm always not leaving that mic, but I have it. It's in the truck. But hopefully the train won't be too long. So, growing up here in, what did you say, 2006, you were a teenager. That's awesome.
Oh wow.
That's awesome. So, I'm sure your parents probably went to Morningside, or your
My
grandparents.
grandpa went to Morningside. My grandma went to Morningside. That's how they met.
That's awesome. Beautiful. Beautiful love story, grandparents. So Morningside, the original Morningside was located on South Main Street, and it was established in 1891. Prior to that, there was a Negro school, and then prior to that, there was a Freedman school. So the community was established officially as early as 1868, just a couple of years after Emancipation Proclamation. So when we say Morningside, it's certainly a legacy. And did you know that the history went all the way back to when we were able to have our freedom and the end of the enslavement laws?
I was unaware of how deep the history is in Statesville. I didn't know that
Well,
it was actually that old. I didn't know Statesville went that far back.
we've been here since the settlers. We were brought here with the settlers, so we've always had a large population too. We've always been about a third of the population, so we're not a minority here in Statesville. We are a large Black culture. So the history for me has been like a real purpose, because we have seen Statesville build an economic base based on it being a historical town. But a large part of the history is missing, like Morningside. So we've been advocating beginning in 2021 to have the community recognized, and it was recognized locally as a historical district, and it pinpointed 7 really amazing historical sites, Morningside being one of them because it's such a legacy. Now tell me, what do you know about the cemetery that's right down the street from here? What do you know about that cemetery?
It's very little, but I do know it's been there for at least 200-300 years. So, because the tombstones, like we used to read the dates on it, go back to 1700s, 1800s.
It's a very old cemetery, and we hope that we will gain the support of everyone, especially young people, that it can become a national monument, because there are hundreds of families there that survived enslavement that are buried there in unmarked graves. You have World War I servicemen buried there. You have Buffalo soldiers from the 1889 Spanish-American conflict that are buried there. So it's a very unique cemetery. It's within walking distance of downtown. It's about a 4-acre burial ground, and one of the earliest that we know of, and certainly one of the ones that has the largest number of those that labored in enslavement and were from here in the Statesville area. So it really is an amazing neighborhood. It was an inclusive neighborhood. You had those that were hourly workers, you had professionals, you had shop owners, you had business leaders. So, thank you, I got help today. So it really is what we consider a distinct historical district. With the information that I've already shared with you, we're sitting on this bridge. This bridge was installed in the 1940s so that the school children coming from the county that wanted to attend the All Grades Morningside School didn't have to cross the live railroad tracks, because that was a huge threat for young people. That's the district t-shirt. Thank you. And so this is one. I mentioned Morningside. I mentioned the cemetery. What do you think the other 3 or 4 landmarks are that are historical in this neighborhood?
I'm gonna say you got the cemetery, you got the Garfield Pool, you got the bridge. What about Depot Hill?
Depot Hill is in the business district of the historical district. That's very good and flat. Tom Dooley, everyone pretty much knows about that. But let me just say this. I meant specifically in the residential area of the historical district. So you mentioned the swimming pool, and the swimming pool does have a significance because it was a segregated facility for decades. However, in addition to the Morningside legacy, the cemetery, this bridge, you have some even older period homes that are historical. One of them is an endangered structure. Have you heard of Dr. Holliday and Mrs. Mary Carlton Holliday before?
I heard of the Holidays, but not those 2 people specifically.
Well, Dr. Holliday was a graduate of Shaw University. He went to Leonard Medical School. He also did his practice of medicine in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, before coming back home to Statesville. And he practiced here in Statesville from 1906 until his death in 1966. Now, Mary Carlton Holliday came to Statesville from Virginia, and she was an early graduate of Hampton Institute, which is now Hampton University, and she came here specifically for the job of being the supervisor over all of the grade schools in Iredell County. And she did that job for 40-some years. Mrs. Holliday. So that would be like a power couple today, right? So like, that's historical.
Relationship goals.
I bet you've seen their home. It's located on Garfield Street. It's in the book. I'm not sure what page. It's on Garfield Street.
Is it 2-story?
It is 2-story.
Is it across street from another 2-story that's brick?
I'm not sure about that, but it is 2-story.
I think I turned right to it when
okay.
I opened it. Hold up.
No, that's Dr.
I did not know
Abernathy.
the house right
That's
there.
Dr. Abernathy. He was a dentist. Let's see. These are period homes. So this is what we consider to be Teachers Row. There it is.
There we go.
It's a historical residence. Thank you. Get a little closer. You're such a good helper today. Thank you. I have an assistant. I got
This is on Garfield Street. Historical.
Yep. So, and it's an endangered landmark. It doesn't currently have a preservation plan, and it is still standing. And so, having the support of making sure that renovations and also that we see an ongoing plan so that it's here for generations to come, because it's certainly part of the early freedom.
I think we should start a black box.
And okay, tell us what that is.
Details. A black box would be for the community, for our folks. It would be like for stuff like this. Ideas, cookouts, birthdays, single mothers in need, anybody in need, for the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Get back communicating with each other.
Well, that would be the beauty of a museum complex. So there is some support for Morningside, the former high school, that's still standing, a large structure right facing Garfield Street, to be a museum complex, so that you would have business initiatives, so you could have joint workspaces, as well as activities, because they've had lots of ideas. They would love to see a 24-hour, all-year-round aquatic program. They would love to see even like a science center or an observatory. So those would be things that would bring in additional resources and not be always dependent on preservation funding and contributions. Yeah, so the possibilities are really endless. And don't you think that the history, so far, I haven't even told you half of it. Don't you think that this is a history with the landmarks that are in close proximity, that if you were driving down the street, let's say you were driving down I-77 and you saw a sign that said Black Historic District, exit 48, don't you think that you would be tempted to come?
I want to see.
Yeah. And so this historical district that we currently have is probably more ideal than anything, I would say, within a 40-mile radius. I know people might argue with me, but I think that the next more substantial historical community and landmarks would probably be in Charlotte, Asheville, maybe Winston-Salem, and Greensboro. So we are in a good location to build up this history in a, he's got a phone call, in a historical town. Okay, so I don't want to hold you up too long.
No,
so I told you about Morningside. I told you about this bridge.
I need to start over.
I told you about the cemetery. No, I told you about the Holiday House. Now I want to tell you about this other brother. Okay, this brother, we should have a statue. Every child from, learning their ABCs should know who this next brother is that I'm going to tell you about, okay?
What's his name?
And when you go home today, I want you to make sure that you share this, because maybe some people know, but I'm betting a lot of people don't know, okay? So let me tell you about this one brother. Now, both of his parents had survived life, labor, and enslavement. And he decided that he was going to build a private academy. It took him 6 years to raise the funding, private funding. Okay, he traveled up north, and the community here, this community helped him, and he built a private academy. In 1906, the doors opened, okay? They broke ground in 1905. And it was a private school for kind of like, an all-grade school, but also it taught trades like seamstress and carpentry, things that were a trade at that time. We're talking about the early 1900s. This brother graduated early in theology from Biddle University. Do you know what college Biddle University is, my brother?
Is it Black College?
It is.
Black Historic College?
It is. Have you heard of Johnson C. Smith?
Yes.
Johnson C. Smith was Biddle College. That's where he graduated from school. So the brother's a HBCU grad, right? They didn't call it that back then. But, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but a lot of times when you talk about a lot of the great leadership, we have to kind of give credit to some of the biracial leadership that we had. But there ain't nothing, this was an African brother, okay? And I mean, just a black man that had this vision, implemented it, and opened up a private building, a 2-story with a basement and a functional attic, because they had dorm rooms for some of the students. And so he did it, yeah. His name was Reverend Wentz, W-E-N-T-Z, Reverend Wentz. And he built that school on South Green Street. There's a picture of it.
What was his church at?
He was with the Broad Street Church.
No, my church is Shiloh.
That's okay. That's a historical building as well. Let me show it to you really quick. So when I was a young girl, it was no longer used as the academy. The academy lasted from 1906 until the early 1930s, when the Great Depression, they ran into economic hardship. But this was the building on South Green Street. If you go down Dockery Street now and you look at that flat area where it's next to Calvary Presbyterian Church, this is where it stood, okay? So you can tell that that was an amazing structure. It was, house, and it had huge windows. I remember these large square windows because we used it as a church when I was a child. Yeah, they tore it down in the 1970s, but that was major. A private academy.
How major?
It was. It really was. In this neighborhood.
For its time, that was
in this neighborhood. Yeah, in this neighborhood. Okay?
The potential is here.
Yes. Okay, I got to tell you one more, and then I'm going to let you go. I talked about this live a couple of days ago, and I'm going to see if you recognize. Let me see if I can hide the name, and let me see if you recognize this other historical landmark. Not far from that building. You ready? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to hide this. Do you recognize that building? You ever heard of this building?
Is that?
It was on the corner of Garfield Street and South Green Street, not far from, well, it was next to the original Morningside. No? Mm-hmm. It was First Baptist Church.
First Baptist Church?
Built in 1867.
Oh my Lord.
1867. The congregation had survived enslavement. That, former enslaved people built this church. And I remember it as a kid. It wasn't being used as the church. They had already started building the new church. But it looked like a castle to me as a small child, okay? It was right on the corner. And if you go there today, you can still see this retaining wall. Mm-hmm. Right there on the corner, that's the retaining wall of First Baptist Church.
I need to I'm about to take pictures.
This is your book. This is your book. So, I'm going to tell you one other one. It's an amazing history. Thank you. We just met on the street, okay? I'm setting up, and he just came up, and he's very helpful. Setting up my tripod, and just helping an old girl out. I really appreciate it. So, I told you about First Baptist Church, told you about the Holiday House, told you about Morningside and that legacy, this bridge, the cemetery, and our service members and survivors of enslavement. So I got one more landmark to tell you about. And actually there are two, but one of them is already recognized at the national level, and that's Mount Pleasant. Yeah. Mount Pleasant Church. It's on South Center Street in Garfield, right there on the corner near the flashing yellow and red light. Yep. So that one's already recognized as a national African-American historic landmark. Mm-hmm. But right directly across from where First Baptist Church, where this early church was built, was the Negro Hospital. Had you ever heard of the Negro Hospital before?
Is it in front of my place?
It's no longer there anymore.
But it was, right? That's my grandma's one.
It was. It was right on the corner, about 2 doors over from Dr. Holliday's house. So, yes. And it was established by a medical practitioner by the name of Nurse Daisy Robinson.
So if you say I was sick, say my kid was sick, my child was sick, and no hospitals would take you because my insurance cannot go to Dr. Holiday?
Well, it didn't matter if you had insurance or not back then. If it was an emergency, you could go to the Long Hospital, but you couldn't be admitted there. They would send you, because you were black, or Negro, or colored is what we were called then. They would send you to the Daisy House. It was called the Daisy House. But it was an official annex to the Long Hospital. It was officially the Negro Hospital Facility, and they called it the Daisy House. Mm-hmm. Now, Daisy Robinson was a nurse, and they recently found her headstone, and I believe they could have located the base, because when we were getting some of the solicited research for the cemetery, some things that weren't really appropriate occurred, and they covered over some of the relics. but we do know where the top of her headstone that has the inscription of her information, her name and her date of birth and date of death, that headstone has been found, and it is in the Green Street Cemetery. So with that, and I'm like, I've told you the highlights, but there are a number of period homes here, a number of leaders in this community, but that's the early history, and so it's certainly a significant history for this community, isn't it?
Yes,
You're going to share that today?
Share with the world.
Okay, make sure that they call officials and say, hey, we tired of this.
Wetland preservation.
Yes.
Black history.
We want a preservation plan. We want these historical sites so that we can bring in contributions, we can bring in funding, we can bring in grants, and we can then stretch out from those historical sites and do block grants to help some of the property owners, especially the ones that have the smaller period homes that were redlined, could not get the type of services and repairs that were so needed. You know, this community for decades never had sidewalks except for Green Street, South Green Street and Garfield Street, never had curbing. And we're talking about when I was a kid, not the early 1900s. We didn't have sidewalks in the community. It was dirt roads when I was a kid, and everywhere else, you know, nearby had paved roads, but this neighborhood had dirt roads. You know, there's a lot of things about segregation that were wonderful. So I don't want to make it seem all bad and negative, because we were a real community. You had shop owners, you had business owners, and we could depend on each other. And there was a lot of opposition. As I said, we were redlined. You know what redlining is, right? So if your home was...
Cross the line.
No, if your home was had some deterioration, and maybe you had equity in the home and you wanted to go to the bank and borrow money to repair the home, you couldn't get it. You couldn't get it. So that's what redlining is. Redlining is when you see systemic, kind of financial blackballing. And so you see systemic systems in place that cause a neighborhood to have a deterioration in its economic growth. And so preservation, historical preservation, is the opposite of that. So we could lift this up. Now, we have had people trying to divide, you know, the interest in it because, oh, you've got Rabbittown, you've got Rankintown, you've got Poplar Branch, they're historical cities. I said, yes. Historical neighborhoods. I said, yes, they are. They were established right after we got Emancipation Proclamation, after the slave laws ended. But they've already seen so much gentrification. What is it that we're going to invest in that, you know, wouldn't be a priority over what we could invest in here? Because this community serviced all of Iredell County. If you were sick, you came to the Daisy House. So if you wanted to go to all grade school, you went to Morningside. Unity was a second Negro school, but it didn't come along until the mid-1940s. So Morningside has a legacy that goes all the way back to our freedom. And our freedom, that's a great thing for us to have citizenship, right?
Yeah, it is. It's a beautiful thing.
Okay, well, I'm going to let you go, but you've been great company today. You really have.
This is great. This is knowledge. This is food. This is breakfast.
So what are you going to do with it? What are your plans to do with this information now that you know?
Now when I see people destroying the community,
you're going to call city council and complain?
We're having a meeting.
Okay.
And we're going to discuss it first.
Yeah. Well, how about this? I believe it's the second Monday and the third Monday. I have to check online. But I can text you because we're friends on Facebook now. But you can participate in going to the city council meetings. You can also go to the county commissioner meetings. But not only that, there are several organizations and your church as well. And I know a lot of people, I don't go to church, I don't want to go to church. Let me tell you something. One of the best ways you can find out what's going on in your community is to go to church. And then if you go to a church and there's nothing going on, you can get something started, you know?
Right.
So the best thing that we can do right now is to show as many people as possible that we support having preservation funding to establish an economic base in this community, and that it's worth it. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right. Deal? Deal? Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm going to be packing up pretty soon, but I've got a couple of things I'm going to say and remind everybody. on Saturday. That's tomorrow at 12 o'clock. I'm going to be meeting at Historic Depot Hill, right up the street from the flat. It's at the very end of South Center Street here in Statesville, North Carolina. At 12 o'clock, we're going to do another tour. We had a tour last Sunday. We actually got to go inside the historical Mount Pleasant Church last Sunday. And that church was still in 1868.
Is it still
on
like
the corner.
operable?
Yes, no, it's a beautiful church. It does need some preservation funding for repairs, but no, it's in pretty good shape. And yes, and it's been operational since the doors opened. Yes, so it's a fabulous history there. And so we won't be able to go in on a Saturday, but we will go in. We will go out on the outside, and I'll tell you a lot about the architect and a little about some of the historical figures that were part of the founding congregation there at Mount Pleasant Church, which is a nationally recognized historical landmark. And I call it like the front door of the Black Historic District, okay? What can you tell me that's amazing for you about this neighborhood? Had I not told you about this early history with our freedom and our enslavement, you know, stepping from enslavement to freedom in this neighborhood, what did you know about it?
The most amazing thing from my experience from this neighborhood was the people in it, the potential, and the stars that came out this neighborhood and that's still here.
Oh,
you know
tell us about that.
So it's like, it's empowered people in here. Statesville, North Carolina is powerful people. Got potential. Jack of all trades here. So it's like, I just seen beautiful things over here. Take the good with the bad, but you know, it's just a lot that can be done.
Well, can you ask everybody to please share my content? No, on your Facebook.
Okay.
On your Facebook.
I'm adding these people that's on your Facebook. Beverly Ramseur,
Really?
Sandra. I'm gonna go add these people.
Okay.
Hey, Bev.
Thank you. Thank you guys for, tuning in. Is that the word I use?
Yeah,
Thank
tune
you
in.
for tuning in.
Tap in.
Tap in. Yes, make sure that you share. I will be posting this video on TikTok, Instagram, maybe even LinkedIn. I'll try to shorten it a little bit because people tell me, oh, your emails are long and now your Facebooks are long. So I'll try to condense them down, highlight the highlight points. But please share the information because we've been at it trying to bring about a substantial phase one of a preservation plan. And we've heard, oh, well, we're in phase one, but if you don't have anything written down, it doesn't really exist. You can say it all day, but if it doesn't exist, it doesn't have a goal, it doesn't have the substantial access to the resources that need to be constantly in place as a plan does move forward. We don't have that.
Right.
And we have had some research done, and we've not seen an African-American consultant yet. And so we don't have control of the information yet, and we are not even getting all of the information. And that's not to say that the information that has been provided is not substantial. It is, but when you are trying to play catch up, and you want things expedited, that's not an excuse to not do a thorough job. And so we want to see a thorough job. We want to see protocols that are standard, and we want to see substantial investment in preservation. We have had decades of our tax dollars being parts of other non-Black historical districts. Why can't we see even the seed money come from all the historic districts to help us out over here, because our money has gone into those others without a problem? No, did anybody come to tell you, hey, is it okay if we use your tax money? We're going to sustain downtown. We're going to sustain Race Street. We're going to sustain historical Mitchell College. Nobody asked us that. So when we see preservation funding, large grants going to Fort Dobbs, nobody is coming to ask us about it. But it seems that the excuse or the delay has been based on, well, not enough people support it. Hey, the leadership in this city decided that Fort Dobbs was an essential part of early history, and the leadership got together and they made it happen. But we've had leadership here trying to do and trying to make sure that everybody is aware, and still nothing, very little. I shouldn't say nothing. We've had, you know,
Zero.
a few things, but it's very little. It's not substantial at all. And so we need to make sure that everyone is calling up and putting your vote on the line, putting your support on the line, voicing your support for this, because it's not just for us, and it's not just for this community. It's for generation after generation after generation to have access and control of preservation funding that benefits Black culture, that
Right.
benefits Black history. And right now, we don't have that. We do not have it. And it's very unfair. And it's very unfair for our great-grandchildren to come. It's very unfair for the descendants that will come, because if we don't get this done, they will come in here and gentrify this place, and even the new low-income housing can get gone, and its ideal location close to downtown Statesville will wipe out this history, and we'll never know about it. Just like, and I don't mean to down you, young man,
Yeah,
but just like this young man didn't know anything
I didn't
about
know
our
zero.
early history, our great-great-grandkids to come won't know anything about it if we don't get this done. They won't know anything about it. Okay, that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for following, so much for tuning in. I am going to be posting some things. Please, if you can't make it to the tour tomorrow, and it is
Where's the
a
tour?
little bit of a walking tour. I start out at Depot Hill, the very extreme south end of South Center Street. And right up from the flat, you'll see my truck with the sign on it that says Statesville's Black Historic District. We're going to start out at 12 o'clock. It is a good little bit of walking, but for those of you who can't walk it, you know, I've got a van, I've got a truck, and we'll make it work. This is an awareness and advocacy tour. So when you say something about one of the landmarks, you'll know exactly where it is. You'll know exactly what proximity we're talking about, and you'll know the history, because I give you a very detailed lesson.
Yes,
when
ma'am.
you're actually walking on this bridge, you will feel the history of Statesville, and that's really the purpose of the tour. The tour does not cost anything. It's a free tour. Now, at the end of the tour, I
Tomorrow,
do
right?
ask for a donation tomorrow at 12 o'clock.
I'm gonna get one.
At the end of the tour, I do ask for a donation, and then I try to sell you my little book, because I'm an advocate, I'm an independent,
I'll make sure
no
you get at least 10
organization
books sold
supports
tomorrow.
me. So if you appreciate me getting out here, being an advocate, pushing this
Good.
agenda, then help support me, okay? Thank you so much, and I've done it. Hi.
Well, we got Black History interview tomorrow, man. We gotta walk downtown and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm coming to get you as an artist.
Thank you.
This woman is
Hi,
serious.
how are you? Come on and do the tour.
We on Garfield
We would
Bridge.
love to have young people out tomorrow. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. 17 and up. 17 years old and up. Okay, well, that's going to do it
Good
for
promo.
today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
so what
I
time
appreciate
tomorrow
you.
would it be the
12
tour?
noon. 12 noon.
12.
And it
Depot
takes
Hill.
about an hour and a half. Yes, we start out at Depot Hill. Come a little early. Okay, come a little early so I can get a head count. All right, thank you, everybody.
Alrighty.